Good morning. This is the strangest of circumstances. It's actually about, let's see, it's 5:34 on Monday, April 26th. And there's nobody, well, there's a few people in the building, but not very many. Because if I was at home recording this, then it would be too loud for everyone. And so I'm here in the building doing it instead. And we have our girls' golf tournament today. And it's going to be a beautiful day, but I needed to get this done. So here we go. My name's Stephanie Leasure. I'm the athletic director at Doherty High School. Thanks for tuning into this. This is for Season D parents and athletes. So anyone engaged in sports starting either last week for girls golf or today for any of the other sports, which would be baseball, girls soccer, boys swim and dive, girls tennis, or track and field. So thanks for being with me this morning. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. Because your teams will also have parent meetings, but this is the part that you need to hear from me. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a PowerPoint that I need to show you. So let's get to that. Let's go here. Okay, so you are going to prove that you've listened to this meeting, you're going to have to send a response to a question. It's not the same question that we've done the rest of the year because things are different. So there will be a different question that I'm going to need you to email me, and I'll give you my email address in a little bit. So important people that you need to know over the course of this year, and I'm going to show you their pictures. You guys, unless you're freshmen, you have not met Aaron Bridgman, but most of you have know who Mr. Gardner is, our principal. He's going to be around a lot. Our trainer, Aaron Bridgman, one of the best that in our district and in Colorado Springs in the state, just an incredible person, takes care of us great. Our district AD, Mr. Chris Knoll, he will be around a lot. He is involved in our district athletics. My three most important ladies, Nancy Oliver, our bookkeeper, deals all with money. Also Deb Madison as well, also deals with fundraisers. And then Christina Montoya, who does a lot of stuff with just straight athletics. So if you've got issues with big teams or anything like that, she's the one to contact there, or with other sports schedule stuff, that sort of thing. Our head coaches. Something I need you to know, right? Like these coaches right here are all veteran coaches. So they were supposed to coach this last spring in 2020. And I think only coached a few days, maybe 3 or 4 days, something like that. Maybe 4 or 5. We had baseball got to play one game, I think. I don't think golf got any in. So Colin Prater is a returner, but not really. Like he hasn't really been a head coach yet. So good luck, Coach Prater, right, in your first year. The rest are definite veterans, but missed an entire season last year. So it was not an easy thing. They have spent a year waiting to coach your kids. So extend them grace, but also give them a thanks this year. Gone through a lot. It's been a tough year, and this will be a tough season, no doubt. Like they've never had a season like this. So please make sure you say thank you. So for baseball, Coach Andy Storm, he actually is. I mean, he's a veteran coach, but he's also a new head coach. Doesn't seem like it because both he and Coach Prater have done a ton of work and have been around a lot. So it doesn't seem like they're new coaches, but they really are. Girls soccer, Craig Decker, a definite returning veteran. Murphy Berry has coached for a long time with both boys and girls swim and dive. Sherry Rogers is a veteran coach on our coaching staff. She is the longest tenured coach on our coaching staff. Coached a variety of sports. And then track and field, Rob Dunsing, definitely experienced and well respected around our city and state as well. So again, give them thanks this year. So just so that you had an idea of where things fit, right? We started doing these meetings as of Season B. Season D, we are finally in Season D. We started last week. We end, who knows, the last possible time is June 26th. So let's hope we have somebody, I think that's baseball or boys swim. They're one of the latest, so that they're still going at that point. That'd be exciting. Okay, so what your athletes are experiencing every day. So things have shifted in Season D, and we can be thankful for that because things have gotten better, at least, at this point. So things have shifted as far as what the expectations are for COVID and CHSAA updates. So kids they have to answer COVID questions every day, whether that's in a large group, whether it's on a QR code, whether it's 1 by 1, whatever it is, they have to answer daily symptoms questions. What's super important about that, parents and athletes, is that you should not come to practice if you are feeling any of those symptoms. In this instance, working through it doesn't help because you could expose a lot of people if by chance you happen to be ill. So if you're not feeling well, you should not come to practice. The change in mask mandate for outdoor sports is that as soon as student athletes are outside, for coaches, athletes, and spectators, masks are encouraged and recommended, but not required. Let me say that again. Mask wearing for coaches, athletes, and spectators is recommended and encouraged, but not required. So that's a significant change. Inside our one inside sport, which is boys swim, I'm sorry, but you still have to wear masks. Coaches, athletes, and spectators. At least we do get to have spectators for swim. We weren't allowed in season B. So that's a step in the right direction, but there's masks and social distancing guidelines when we're inside. And athletes are also experiencing changes to sport guidelines and schedules all the time. So there's a couple of things that maybe you'll want to take a picture of this here in just a second, but what you can expect as a spectator, that's their security and admin presence at games to remind spectators of masks and social distancing while we're inside, and just generally at varsity games outside as well. And you can expect limited spectators inside, but yes, 2 spectators. Lots of schedule changes. I can't reiterate that enough. We've had a ton. So it's been tough, to say the least, and it's tough on your coaches, it's tough on your kids. So please extend grace. So keep checking www.dohertyathletics.org. So that updates with all our schedule changes. Our scheduling software is our school. If you have issues with Doherty Athletics, if it's down or whatever, bookmark this address down here. If you see it at the bottom, the https://PikesPeakAthleticConference.org. That is also a website where you can see all the PPAC schedules. You just go to that website and then you click on Doherty and you can see and you can view schedules, whether you want to see what's going on day to day or whether you want to take a look at a complete schedule. So that's a good spot as well. So what stays the same for us? With all those things changing, what stays the same? Our commitment to being we before me. What that means is we think of our team before we think of ourselves. When we are allowed to be spectators inside, we wear a mask over our nose and mouth and we social distance. That's when we're inside. And I want to hit, because it's such a change, the mask mandate and social distancing guidelines for season D. I want you to pay careful attention to these last couple of bullets. Please extend grace to those creating and managing guidelines. A lot of times they're not their guidelines and they just have to enforce whatever it is. So please extend grace to those people who are extending and managing guidelines. And then this last one, I want you to look carefully at this. Understand and be empathetic to others' perspectives. If you choose to wear a mask, don't judge those who don't. And conversely, do not judge someone who wants to wear a mask. We have to understand one another. So you have to look within yourselves at this point, right? If you are a mask wearer and a social distancer, this season D might be tougher, right? Especially ones where you sit close to people. Soccer, tennis, track, you can probably find spaces. Golf, right? You can find places to spread out. Baseball is going to be a little tighter, right? The stands are not super spread apart. So if mask wearing and social distancing is something that's super important to you, baseball is going to be harder. And I just ask that we respect one another. And if that is a big deal for you, because it isn't a requirement, I'd ask that you understand yourself and understand that you might have to adjust and stand by a fence along the first or third base line or whatever it is. Find a space to be so that you can watch from a ways away. So I just ask you to be empathetic to one another. Okay, let's talk about so those are changes in COVID guidelines. So some of the sports for season D are super easy, right? You make a decision because this person beats this person, so that person gets to play a higher position, or it swims a faster time, so they So they get to swim that race, or they shoot a lower score in golf, whatever it is, they run faster in track. We have some of those, but we also have baseball and soccer, which are subjective judgment sports. And yes, the numbers are there, but coaches also look for significant amounts of things that are intangible. And so it can't necessarily be scored. So bottom line, playing time is competitive and not always equal. That's where we are in high school sports. What I'd ask you to work, student athletes and parents work together to work on growth, being growth oriented, that hard work can and will pay off, and that what you bring to the table is important and valued, but it doesn't always mean it's the same as everyone else's. So I'd encourage you to be a good teammate, have good body language, work hard, encourage others. Coaches see those things. Administrators see those things. Other coaches see those things. Other parents see those things. So be a good teammate, have good body language, work hard. Parents, this is mostly to you. Do not ruin the relationship between an athlete and a coach by negative talk about the coach or other athletes in front of your athlete. It is poison. There's so many times when because I spend a lot of time with kids in sports, so I hear it. Like, I hear it when a kid speaks, and I know that a kid has not come up with that on their own. They have heard it from an adult, and it's coming out of their mouth. So if they are speaking it, they are listening to you, they hear it, they respect you, and please work hard to maintain the relationship between a kid and a coach by not speaking negatively about a coach in front of your kid. If you have to vent about a coach or your frustrations or whatever it is, go with another adult, your spouse, a friend that you trust, but not with your kid. And then this one I'm going to highlight significantly, because this goes in a lot of things, right? In season D as well. Smaller crowds, soccer, you can hear everything. Baseball, you can definitely hear everything. Do not speak negatively about an athlete from another team or from your own team while sitting in the stands. Most trouble stems from either that or from treatment of officials. So what I mean about that, like just recently in youth basketball, there's a tournament in Power to Play, which is in Windsor, Colorado. It's kind of like Gold Crown, multiple courts, that sort of thing. And there was an altercation between two teams, a parent and another parent, and it started from this parent thinking what, and I wasn't there, so how do I know? But thinking that a parent from another team was bad mouthing or speaking poorly about her daughter. As a result, she went to confront, and a straight up fight ensued. Do not speak negatively about another kid from another school while you're in the stands. And you know what? Don't speak negatively about our own teammates while in the stands. You might be frustrated about an athlete's performance, but honestly, like, we've got to keep that to ourselves. Cheer them on, cheer on our team. Do not speak negatively of another team. Okay, let's talk about chain of command for communication. We had some issues with this last season, so let's reiterate. As a parent, you should always come to the AD or principal if you're concerned about your child's physical, mental, or emotional safety. Is there something going on within that program that makes you concerned about your child's physical, mental, or emotional safety? However, the caveat to that is playing time. Okay, playing time does not result in any child's physical, mental, or emotional. Like, it's something to be worked with and understood and worked through. That's not something that you come directly to the AD or principal for. So here's your, if there is an issue with playing time, this is your communication chain. Student athlete must go to the coach first and foremost before you become at all involved. So if you want to become involved, talk to your student athlete. If he or she, if there's an issue, he or she needs to speak with the coach first. Then if you feel like there are still no results, you as a student athlete and parent meet with the coach. I'm going to tell you, my coaches not to meet with you, with your kids, unless the kid has come to them first. If your kid doesn't want to do the meeting, then we don't go any further. Like, honestly, we don't go any further. Your kids are high school kids. It's time for them to communicate for themselves. So if they're not willing to address the coach, unless there's some sort of strange circumstance which then you could talk to the coach about it. But unless there's some sort of strange circumstance, if they're not willing to meet with the coach, then we don't go any further. They need to be able to advocate for themselves at this point. After, if by chance still things aren't solved after you and your student athlete meet with a coach, then it could come to me. Before you meet, I need you to ask yourself these questions. Am I being realistic about my student athlete and what he or she, what her skill set is? Am I reacting based on my why or my student athlete's why? What that means is why they want to participate. What is it they're looking for in their participation? And then the last one, do other students simply bring more to the table? And that is one of the, I always say it, but it's one of the hardest things as a parent to recognize, is that some kids get more leeway to make mistakes because of what they bring to the sport. And it's just one of those things that you don't understand until you see it actually happen. And you understand that because a person has the ability to possibly bring more, they also get a longer leash to screw up, and that's super hard. But it's also real life. So think about those things before you talk to your kids, before you talk to your coach, that sort of thing. And then I want to address anonymous communication. I do receive anonymous communication. Sometimes we received them in the forms of Safe to Tell. Sometimes we've received them from fake email addresses, that sort of thing. I will read them, but I'm not going to take action on them. I usually respond back. But I ask before I take action on anything, I would ask for person-to-person communication, either to talk on the phone or to send me an email, but from an actual person, and tell me who you are and what's going on with your kid. I don't practice retribution, and my coaches don't either. I have been an administrator now for, whether an assistant principal or an athletic director, for the past 11 years, 12 years. And so I've worked hard to try to understand situations and work through other adults and coaches and teachers and everything else without there being like this any form of retribution that takes place with kids when parents have legitimate concerns. So please come to me. So this is your turn and talk. So you are going to need to turn this response into me, and I'm going to give you my email address at the end. So parents, your turn and talk is you are interviewing your student athlete. Why do you want to play a sport during this upcoming season D? What is your why? Why does your child want to play? That's what you're going to send me in an email response. So take a picture of that if you need to, or whatever it is. I'll go back to it in just a few minutes, but you're going to turn and talk about that. That's going to be your evidence that you have attended this meeting. Okay, we're also for sure officials, right? It's not so much of a problem in most of the things, except for in baseball and soccer. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be a problem in most of the things, sports that we're engaging in this year. So in your breakout sessions, when you meet with your coaches, you'll have a conversation about officials and how you'll treat officials as a program, whether that's student athletes, coaches, or kids. I'll tell you, like, I'm not going to pretend that I don't get frustrated with officials. I was just at volleyball matches for my daughter yesterday, and there's a couple of questionable calls. And yes, I sit there and go, what? And that was in, it's not out, like, so that happens. But when I get into what we're not going to deal with is, you're terrible. That's terrible. And you yelling directly at officials, speaking how poorly it is. I see it most often in calling strike zone for baseball, definitely, and contact in soccer, definitely, right? Like, understood. There's going to be difference in opinion. And yeah, we're not going to agree with officials, but do not get to where you are telling officials that they are terrible and that they don't belong there and that they're costing you the game. Yes, there are bad calls, but ultimately officials do not cost us games. Bottom line, players must adjust. Coaches must adjust and fight the necessary battles professionally. Parents need to support their athletes and let coaches fight those battles. Remember, everyone can hear what you say with fewer people in the stands. So please guard what you're speaking. And I'm going to tell you, kids, my if I can say anything, is that you lose the same way you win. You compete hard and with class. And if we do that, the rest of it doesn't matter. So I understand that we don't always win. But if we compete our hearts out and we leave it all in the field and we play with class, then nothing else matters. That's what I'm looking for. But my expectation is that we compete hard. Like, we play hard no matter what. If you quit, you don't play hard. If you screw up and you don't hustle back, like, those are all things that, like, we're not going to deal with. Okay, this is your Doherty Games Management team. As you're looking at the screen, the upper left-hand corner, that's our principal, Kevin Gardner. Next to him in the upper row is Lana Flanagan, veteran assistant principal at Doherty. Next to her is Hillary Hinton. She's a new assistant principal at Doherty and doing a great job. Next to her, still in the upper right-hand corner of the top row, is Ryan Alsop. He's been at Doherty for a couple of years. Bottom left-hand row is Scott Crosby, our head counselor. He's going to be at games. Next to him is Giovanni Ortiz. You could see him. He's our one of our deans of students. He could be at games. Next to him is Brian Blanc. Brian's been doing, he's got his administrative license and is a teacher at Doherty, so he subs in for us at times. And then bottom right-hand corner is Chris Knoll. He's our district athletic director. He is also a games manager for us at times. So if any of those people approach you, they're going to have an ID on, but if they approach you to talk to you about how you're speaking with to officials, or how you're talking to coaches, or if you're not social distancing or wearing a mask inside, that sort of thing, I'd ask you that you treat them with respect. They're going to treat you with respect. Our league alignment, if you don't know if this is your first sport, for some sports, it'll be interesting this year. Like, you won't see all of our league opponents, but you will in baseball. You'll see them in golf. You'll see them in soccer. You'll see some of them in swim and dive. You'll see some of them in tennis, and you'll see them off and on in track and field, just depending on what meets we're at. So it's Air Academy, Cheyenne Mountain, Discovery Canyon, Doherty, Fountain, LP, Liberty, Palmer Ridge, Pine Creek, Rampart, and Vista Ridge. It's a daddy of a league, I'll be honest. It's some tough competition. I firmly believe, like in this last season, in Season C, that's still finishing for boys soccer and girls volleyball, I think it's the best conference in the state for 4A and 5A. It's and I would imagine it'll be very similar for girls soccer. It's really good in tennis, really good in golf, great in baseball. I mean, it's just, bottom line, it's a great conference. So really good competition. So one thing, academic study or athletic study tables and eligibility, the biggest thing for you is that, so if you take a look at the eligibility check, we've gone past one already. The most significant one for Season D athletes is that we've got DNF reporting that'll take place on the 28th, which is this Wednesday. That will be our mark for starting athletic study tables. We will start athletic study tables, and we'll go for 3 weeks, starting at the beginning of May. And we will go through 3 weeks there. Final grades for seniors are due on May 12th. Those for seniors, like, of course, you need to graduate, so your grades should be in order. But at that last time, that will designate your eligibility for the rest of Season D. For the rest of everyone, May 26th. Is final grades for grades 9 to 11. That will impact the rest of your Season D. If you're not eligible at that time, you will not be able to play the rest of Season D. And you also need to hear from me, right, that this eligibility check is significant because it impacts your fall eligibility. So that's going to come faster than you think. If you're done with spring sports in the middle of June, we'll go back to fall sports regular, like, my goodness sakes, regular in August. So your eligibility at the end of this semester also impacts your fall eligibility. So make sure your grades are in order. I post athletic study tables on all 3 social media websites, so you'll see that. Also 3 social media platforms, our website as well. So I'll give you some information on that here in a second. So these are the communication tools. Take a screenshot or take a picture of this if you need to. On www.dohertyathletics.org, you should become a fan of all 3 levels of your sport because then it will allow you to give you updates for all those sports, including study tables information, and then any schedule changes. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, I'm a significant presence on all 3 of those. So follow those if you have those, if you subscribe to those. And then just want to draw your attention to our substance abuse policy. It also goes with disorderly conduct. So you signed that when you registered for a Season D sport. Our substance abuse policy is pretty clear. If you get caught abusing any kind of substances, whether that's alcohol or drugs, you get a 10% penalty automatically of your season, which in a shortened season, that's significant. On the second and third offense, it gets even more significant. The same thing goes for disorderly conduct. If you are suspended out of school for any reason, the same penalty apply. It is a 10%. It's a 10% penalty, and then it gets further on if you were to get suspended again for anything else. Okay, last couple of things. Refund policy. You are able to request a refund up until if you voluntarily leave a team before you participate in a contest. If you get kicked off a team for disorderly conduct, or if you participate in a game, you cannot no longer receive a refund. So just understand, like, that is the rule. So if you participate in a game and then ask for a refund, you are not going to get it. Be flexible regarding admission into games. I don't think anyone's going to be charging anything in this season, but be prepared just in case. I mean, track meets, I don't know. Baseball generally not. Soccer could. District 11 could. So I need you to be prepared. In fact, they probably are. So be prepared to get admission into Gary Berry. Swim, I don't think we're going to. So just be prepared. It's possible that people will charge admission. Not everyone is going to offer free live streams. You may not want to attend, but I can't guarantee you, because fans are allowed, I can't guarantee you that everyone is going to live stream. We have to be ready to adjust. We might have to pay to watch. We might have to get it done ourselves. Boys swim with girls swim, they ran a live stream from Facebook. Others will have in-person viewing, so I can't guarantee live streams. Okay, so I need you to pay attention to this. Quarantine rules for Season D. This is where we are with sports. Okay, if you are quarantined because of your exposure to a positive test, whether in school or in sports, athletes can return to play on day 8 from exposure with a negative test after day 5. Okay, so let me say that again. You can return to play on day 8 from exposure with a negative COVID test result after day 5. So you can take a test after day 5. When you get the results, if they're negative, you return on day 8. If you choose to not take a test, you have a regular quarantine. It could be anywhere from 10 to 14 days. So you don't have to test. It could just be that length of time. This is not the same for school quarantines. I can't tell you why the rules are different, but they are. You may be able to return to play and not be able to return to school. So I can't explain why that's different, but for some reason it is. What that means, the implications for seniors, are that May 3rd and beyond, your graduation is May 18th. As of May 3rd, that's our last, like we squeezed in a whole bunch of senior things in before May 3rd, so that we are able to get in outside that quarantine window. We have to be prepared to respect one another's decisions surrounding that. If you are a senior player and you were to want to reduce your chances at being quarantined, you could stay home from school, but I don't want to say that you have to, because some people need to be in school. You could also wear a mask outside even, and that would reduce your chance of being quarantined. Of course, if you by chance have been able to get vaccinated, if you have a vaccine card and you've been double vaccinated and you're 2 weeks out from that, that does not apply to you. You do not have to be quarantined, but we have to be able to respect one another's decisions surrounding that. Coaches do too, and it's a super weird situation right now, but that's the legitimacy of where we are. Okay, you're checking for this meeting. You're going to send a response to the Turn and Talk question to Stephanie Leasure. Please take a picture of that if you don't know my email address before your first contest. Golf, yours is today, so that doesn't really apply. But the rest of you, before your first game, you need to send me an email telling me in your email, you state your student athlete's name, his or her sport, and your name, and then the response to the Turn and Talk. I'm going to go back to that here in just a second. But again, I need your student athlete's name, his or her sport, and your name. And now I'm going to go back to the Turn and Talk. Okay, so that's what it is. Parents, you're interviewing your student athlete. Why do you want to play a sport during this upcoming Season D, and what is your why? So that's your Turn and Talk response. Thank you guys for being with me this morning. I am fully awake at this point, if I wasn't already. Looking forward to a beautiful season D. It's going to be the nicest weather we ever have for spring sports, so enjoy it. And let's hope for no more snow. Let's just move on from that and have a great season D. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions. I appreciate you guys joining me today. And thanks. Have a great season, Spartans.